What's up? I'm Drew Paul Bell, and today what I want to talk about are the 5 stages of the architectural design process as they're legally defined by the AIA here in the US, the American Institute of Architects. So they define 5 different stages of the design process: schematics, design development, also known as DD, construction documents, known as CD, bidding, and then construction administration, which is also known as CA. So in schematics are basically like what you do in school. Actually, you come up with like the general schematic design of the building. But what that means is it's like what the building looks like, its general appearance, its general shape, its general form. In order to get to schematics, you have to kind of have a fundamental understanding of what the materials are going to be, but in terms of like minor details, you don't have those figured out yet. Yeah, you also probably wouldn't have things like the systems like AC, air conditioning systems, the finer points of the structural systems you probably don't have figured out yet either. It's kind of surface level relatively, because it's naturally just the stage that has to come first, and it's very comparable to what you have to present in school. This happens a lot faster than what happens than the time it takes in school, but it is what it is. It's really the design portion is where you're coming up with the new ideas, imagery, that kind of thing. Next is DD, design development. Once you have pitched this idea to the client, right, which might be in the form of like renderings and a floor plan probably, now you take this into design development. Design development is where you start to figure out the finer points of materials, of structure, is where you lay in the air conditioning systems, water systems, that kind of thing. Maybe some wall section details. Then once that's approved, the next stage is construction documents. These take the same design development things and just kind of take them farther. You get more detail, like construction details is really what it's about. It's about the kind of things that you need to build the building. How the wall meets the floor plate, how all the windows, how each of the windows fits into the walls. Finer points like the details, and this is where you get into kind of the tedium of it all, where you're doing drawings about everything. But so that's construction documents, and then that's kind of the finishing, ideally, right? Theoretically, we're done with the drawings. That's when you start building. Now, there's another stage called bidding. Bidding is when contractors come in, you give them bidding documents, and this is not necessarily the full CDs. Sometimes this can be after like design development, but it's when you give documents to contractors where you feel like you can give them enough information that they can look at the drawings and tell you how much it's going to cost them to build it. So they're going to need like probably a wall section detail, sections, floor plans, all the elevations, interior, some specifications in terms of like materials, things used, that kind of stuff. This is really about how much can you communicate to them to give an accurate bid, an accurate projection of how much it's going to cost. And this is something where you send it out, you get in a couple of bids, and then you and the owner, you as the architect and the owner, go over them and decide who is going to be awarded the commission. Then there's what's called construction administration, CA. In CA, this is where you are, as the architect, are making sure that the building gets built right. Also, because building a building is so complex, you're probably going to run into some problems. And this is the point where contractors are going to call you up and they say things like, look, the tile you specified is like 3 times more expensive than what we thought it was. We found a comparable thing in between. How about we do this instead? Or like in this renovation project, the counter is at an angle, it's crooked, it's really not straight, and you're going to see it on the tile. Can we move it? And then you're like, yeah, sure. And you might run into situations where a detail doesn't quite line up the way you expected it to be, and maybe you have to redo a drawing. So this is construction administration. It's a little bit more fluid because it's kind of a back and forth. You might find problems and then you got to correct them and you got to kind of think on your feet. But so that's CA in a nutshell. It's where you get the building to the final product, where you take it from drawings and make it real. And you as the architect are sort of like an overseer for that. You're just kind of making sure it gets done right, because at this point the contractors are the ones dealing with it every single day, building the thing. So then as soon as that's done, then you can get your certificate of occupancy. That's when you can go occupy the building and it's ready to go. And been officiated, officially approved by the city or the government, like whoever enforces those kinds of things and allows that to happen. So these are the 5 different legal sections of the architectural design phases of the architectural design process. And it's not like the most inspiring video in the world, right? Not the most inspiring content, but these are things that you have to understand to go be a successful architect, and they're things you're going to have to be operating within, whether you're like an intern or a principal. So understanding this sooner than later is definitely good. I hope that this helps, and I will talk to you next time.